Adam, welcome. Welcome to the dirt.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So you've started and bootstrapped a couple companies. In fact, you have a pretty interesting background just in general. What got you started into this world of entrepreneurship?
I was drawn to entrepreneurship in college because I don't know, I guess I looked around and it appeared to me that entrepreneurs had really good lives.
Yeah.
Even in early 2000s, wherever. I grew up in Texas, so it wasn't like the Silicon Valley thing. Like the internet was just starting. That was kind of interesting or whatever. And my brother was 2 years older than me. He was dating a girl in college whose father was dropped out of high school to become an entrepreneur and now had this crazy life or whatever. So he was kind of going down this road. And then I showed up in New York after I graduated, got a job at Lehman Brothers. I traded credit default swaps. It was in 2003. I was there through the financial crisis, bankruptcy, worked for Barclays for 2 years after. Very interesting time. But the most interesting part of it was when I showed up in New York, my friends were starting a website called Vimeo in the apartment that we were living in, a video sharing website. And now it is publicly traded. Yeah. Now everyone knows what it is. So I just watched what they were doing and it appeared, that job that I had, it was so interesting that they made a movie about it. It was a really great place to be in your 20s. And everybody was making a lot of money. It was so far beyond what I would have ever expected from my first career. But the whole time I was watching these guys in tech and it just looked like they were getting more out of it. I didn't really have vocabulary for it at the time because Wall Street's it's a strange value system. It's you come out of college and then everyone is valuing everything based upon only the amount of money that you were perceived to have extracted from the system and nothing else. That is the only reason you work. That is the only reason people are highly regarded. And if it stops, you're fucking out. There's no other aspect to the job other than that, at least at the place I was at, Lehman Brothers. And yeah, man, I wanted to get into tech somehow. I had this mentor at Lehman Brothers so I moved to London a couple of years after the financial crisis because my boss thought Europe was going to implode like the US did. And it would be this correlation one down trade. Sent a bunch of us over there. We all got short. The market rallied. No one got paid. So I moved back and the market was contracting for what I did at that time because there was a bunch of new regulation in the US and they just didn't need as many traders as were there before. So I was just I don't want to, I don't want to take a job that was way worse than the job that I had when I left, when I have I could live for the next 10 years without working with the money that I had saved from the good years. So I was I'm going to spend this money creating a new life for myself. Oh, anyway, the mentor said, the skills that you have from the last 10 years are basically worth nothing now. Everybody's going to work till they're 90, right? Figure out some skills that will keep you, busy and satisfied for the next 50, right? And to me, it was there was no question. It was just internet. It was just I didn't know what and how. Tried teaching myself how to code. I wasn't any good at it. I kind of had, it's I can't really look at a paragraph and notice that something should be a semicolon instead of a comma, just at first glance. And I think that's such a key skill to being able to make code work. Mm-hmm. It's it's not working. It's why? It's because you put a comma instead of a semicolon.
Right.
Maybe in an English paragraph I could tell, but definitely not in this syntax that I'd never seen before.
Right.
And then, I started working on a lot of things. None of it worked. Made a bunch of investments. All of them went to zero. And then started this email newsletter app that actually worked because we had an unfair advantage. We figured out how to we figured out this company called Constant Contact was creating a community page for all of their paying customers that had a 6-digit unencrypted URL, unencrypted number in the URL. It had first name, last name, zip code, and business name on that page. So you could just put it into Google and get a phone number back and then call that person and tell them you had a better service and constant contact. And no one else was doing it, right? If you scaled that 6-digit number up 1, it was a blank page. If you scaled it up 2, it was the next customer. So like some clever engineer at some point built that security system.
Heavy security.
We were like building a product over a long period of time. We had like a really slow moving, crawler that was using Tor IPs and everything else. And like, got like 250,000 leads of people we were using this product. We like created a similar, but kind of same, 50% more opens for half the price or whatever. And that turned into a lifestyle business in the email newsletter space, which is incredibly difficult to grow. I got that to 3 million ARR and it just was stuck there. And like, MailChimp and Klaviyo, it's just these brands. It's like, I like to say it's like selling cola, like against Coke and Pepsi, right? Like, unless you're like really niche in a really small market, like it's very mature. It's like, there's a sea of sameness with the products. Like it's like there's a couple dominant vendors and like 100 people at like 2 million in revenue. So that was the first company. And the second one came out of trying to figure out how to grow the first one. It was an email. And then I heard of this identity resolution stuff, which like, somebody hits your website, they don't fill out a form. You can get an email address of that person. That's unbelievable. That literally is unbelievable. Even still to me, it seems unbelievable. And I heard about that and I was like, well, that would be amazing if I could figure out how to do that. I'm pretty sure I could sell that to anyone with a website. Like who would have a website that would not want that information? Right. So took a year and a half. I did that. I ended up, I thought it was originally going to be a feature in the email marketing app that no one else could do because they just wouldn't be willing to sell data. Messaging companies don't like doing it. And then people were signing up for the app, using the identity service, not using the app, saying it was amazing. And that's like a pretty good indication of product market fit. So it was like, I need to like spin this out. And then it was clear on the first month that it was like going to be way better than the email marketing app. It's just like you say what it does and people's face light up. Whereas like trying to sell in email marketing, an email newsletter app is just like, I can't even explain to you how tired, it's like no one fucking cares, right? Like no one, it's like, I don't even know what a comparison would be, but it's like trying to sell someone something that they already have way more than enough of, right? Like they just don't care. Like it's not a problem. That is a solved problem in the marketplace for the most part, right? Like, I mean, MailChimp just did it so well, right? It's like, it's free for almost everyone. They have a great brand. They have a great product. And they crushed, So yeah, that's kind of, and then a few years later, we're focused on the Shopify universe because it became clear that they were the power users, like by far, like the big Shopify stores.
So is it anyone with an online store or specific to Shopify?
So it was originally just to self-serve. You could sign up $19 a month, get emails on your website, but like the power users in terms of spend and retention were big Shopify stores. So last October, we stopped selling to anyone who was not a big Shopify store to try to like really, like we figured out how to sell an annual deal to those people. Now we're trying to go after that market and nothing else, just because I think like, focus and velocity are like keys to really growing one of these things.
Yeah. So some of the other e-commerce platforms like Wix or Weebly or anything along those lines, that became less of a focus.
Yeah, sorry. Shopify is just like, they're such a dominant player relative to anybody else And they have, so like they have like 2.5 million stores. I don't know what Wix or Weebly has, but it's like nothing
Way
compared
less.
to that.
Yeah, way less.
And then there's something about the mindset of a Shopify store also. Like they're into trying to like grow in like kind of gray area ways. And then they have this, the top of the Shopify universe is called Shopify Plus. And you can find those stores, which is great. Because like our product doesn't work for people who have like less than 3 million in revenue. Like if you're just starting, it's weird. It's like, if you're just starting out, you're like, oh my God, I want those emails, but like, it doesn't work for you. You need to be great at emailing to add inferior quality emails to your email program and have those convert. You know what I mean? At some point, if it's not making money, you will stop doing it. And like, I'm a SaaS business. It's like, I have to eliminate churn literally. That's why it's just, we're big Shopify stores now. We'll probably go above Shopify pretty soon to like, you know, mid-market. Like there's a Salesforce product like Magento, a few other ones. Because the bigger the stores are, the better it works for them, generally speaking. But yeah.
So that brings up a good topic. How do you ensure as your ICP or your ideal customer profile evolves that you maintain product market fit?
So I think it, like if you're talking about us in the beginning, like we got to, 12 million ARR and we only had 6 employees.
Wow.
In like 2 years. One would say that's product market fit. We have this initial product market fit where you say the sentence about what we do, someone signs up, they use the product, and 2 weeks, a month in, they're like, this is the fucking greatest thing ever. Problem is that half of them, 6 months in, are like, I'm not making any money from these emails.
Mm-hmm.
So is that product market fit? I don't know. My churn, if you looked at it at the time, you would have said it was a disaster, like 8-9% a month. But we got to 12 million ARR with 6 people. Is that product market fit? I have no idea. The reason we focused on the Shopify customers is because we'd never had a big Shopify store quit. They were sending us their friends every month, like several of them. They raved about it. And we experimented with this other set of bottom of the funnel audience expansion tools for them. Abandoned cart, abandoned product, whatever. Solved a different problem. They're only being sent to people who are logged in. So you could just use the identity of the anonymous people to send them to people who are not logged in and they didn't have on their list before. So, and that probably just like worked. The immediate lift from what they were doing before was just so clear. Mm-hmm. That between those two things, it's like, well, we should only sell to these Shopify stores. I don't know how big the market really is, but like it's big enough to like get 30, 40, 50 million ARR. And then who fucking cares after that, right? Like it's, it's like, even if the next step is something totally different, it's like, that's such an incredible place to be building from. So I kind of think we didn't have product market fit until we honed in on this ICP and added that bottom of the funnel stuff. I think it can still get better. If I'm thinking about moving up market, I know that there's a sensitivity to privacy that there isn't in this universe we're selling into right now. Mm-hmm. So this is getting very nuanced. Basically, like, it's like, do you lead with a privacy first product that maybe you're taking less cash from some people, but like, I know that some of these guys might not take the call if we're leading with our aggressive product, but would buy it, if they went through the whole sales pitch. So like,
right.
I think it's like, it's just these products are living, breathing organisms, right? And there's like a constant feedback loop between your current customer base and what's working. And like I'm being a dick and talking about my revenue in public and like Now we have competitors like we didn't before, but we also have insane awareness, and we're able to, push from like 13 to 20 million ARR in 6 months, right? That's not bad.
Yeah.
So, but like I got a Loom video a couple weeks ago from this competitor who was kind of kicking our ass at this flow identification stuff. We realized they were doing it in a totally different way that was completely additive to what we were doing that we never thought of. They were like laying down first-party cookies on the server side to track, and ours was entirely third-party cookie client side. So if we did both, we would like see a 3 times revenue lift. That product just got a lot better for those people. It probably got, and that's privacy safe. It's probably like this incredible mid-market product, right? But it's like, it's like, I'm always like feeling like we're not providing enough value to the merchant. I'm always thinking about like, how are we going to like show more revenue? Like, how are we going to, how can we like give something to like way more people for free? So we just have like 100,000 users, and like have the brand effect from that. So yeah, my answer to that is just like, I think if you're not constantly engaged in trying to create more value for your current customer base, you might as well hang it up.
So how I do know? Yeah, no, I feel that in a lot of ways. How have regulatory constraints affected the growth strategy? You mentioned that there were some things early on at the genesis of the business that you thought this thing would never be able to scale due to some regulatory factors, and now you've reached the AR numbers that you mentioned so quickly. Like how have those shifted, and how has that affected the way that you guys have put together your growth strategy?
So I think the summary is that the regulatory landscape is very unclear, but when you describe our product to someone, they think that it is illegal. It just doesn't sound like it should be legal or compliant. And then just at any level. And then there's all of this noise about the state level CCPA, RA, and all this like crap that no one really understands. They just think it's like GDPR.
Yeah.
And it does a couple things. One, in some cases for risk averse customers, it makes it's a lot harder to onboard them. And like, its indirect competitor got a class action lawsuit 6 weeks ago. I think that's caused some top of the funnel problems too. It's like, but it was about pixel retargeting. It wasn't about the email part of what we do. It was a lawsuit that's like Meta's been sued 100 times for this in the last 24 months, right? But like the market doesn't care, right? They're lazy and stupid. Yeah. So I mean, when just people are just like, oh, I don't want my brand name in a lawsuit. But like this is a gray area fringe market, right? Yeah. The burden is that risk averse customers won't use it until there's a lot of education done. And, it's a lot harder to get capital, which is good and bad because it'll make it harder to sell. Like you really have to have understanding from an investor acquirer that the trade-off that you are making is you need to understand this risk very well, acknowledge that it's a risk, and appreciate the fact that since you're taking this risk, you're going to have better unit economics than if it were not there, because there would be a ton of other competitors bidding up the channel, right? So that's the flip side. It's awesome. Like I have spent hundreds of hours with privacy attorneys. I am so confident that the end game of all of this is just more banners on the bottom of people's sites explaining in more detail what's happening with the cookies and getting people to accept. That is what these states want. They're not saying don't track people. They're saying you need to inform the consumer if they're being tracked.
Right.
So that's going to be the end game. I get it because I've done the work. Everybody who thinks it's going to be illegal has not. Right. Investors largely are kind of too lazy. It's like, it's one thing, even if they did do the work, their LPs would be so pissed off if this like tail of something, we're entrepreneurs. Like you can get shut down for a million fucking reasons, right? Like you could just wake up one day and it could all be gone, right? Like that's probably a little higher for my business than anybody else's, but like it is certainly not indicative of
level
the
risk.
competitive landscape, right? Like, so we basically, as a result of this, got to scale to 20 million ARR with 0 direct competitors, which is incredible. And then now that people are popping up, we're already spending $1 million a month on sales and marketing, and we have this great brand, great domain, and we're improving our product very quickly. Like, we just have a lot of resources. I would be afraid if Growbot.com, who popped up as a competitor in the last 6 weeks, if I thought he could go out and raise $100 million to compete against us. I think there's a 0% chance of that. He might be able to get like a couple $1,000,000, maybe. But like, he may not need to, because he's sort of also just, undercutting us, and, maybe he doesn't want to create a unicorn. He's just trying to like, have a little cash flow business, which this would be a great one, right? Like, so yeah, I think that's like the plus and minus of dealing with an uncertain regulatory environment. Like, there's companies actively marketing fear.
Yeah.
Right. Like, in no information, which creates this dynamic where it's a headwind in some ways, but like, the beauty of being the only game in town, it's like, dude, we have like a 60% close rate, 30-day sales cycle on a 20K ACV. It's like, you don't get that if people are checking around and trying to like compare vendors to pick a solution. It just doesn't work like that. Like,
so where do you see all this heading over the coming years? My
company or the regulation?
Yeah, your company first, and then regulation.
Yeah, like regulation. I'm not, like I said, the regulation I said before. I just think it ends with more consent and more, conspicuous sort of like description of what's going on. With my company, I have two kind of like egotistical thing, or like like I would love to bootstrap 100 million ARR somehow. Like, I'm not totally sure. I thought the TAM is unclear with the Shopify thing. It's just, I've thought it's big, small, in the middle. I don't know. And then all the vendors selling in this ecosystem are just getting hammered right now. So it's like unclear, like why, because the merchants aren't really hurting, but like, I don't know. I would love to bootstrap 100 million ARR. Not many companies have in SaaS. Probably 3, maybe, I don't know, 4. That would be an elite club to be a part of. And, we may have to like do a B2B product or something to like get there, but that'd be great. I would love to, I like really admire these category dominating apps. Like, for instance, Klaviyo, it looked like the game had been won with MailChimp, and these guys showed up, and now they have like 80% or 90% market share in the Shopify universe. Unbelievable. So, I mean, those are kind of like the ambitious global dominating. Where does it all end up? I mean, I think it probably ends up being a valuable business, right? It's like, I mean, it's getting to the point where, especially if we're able to like diversify the revenue story away from the sensitivity that we're talking about, we're like, literally the only thing that the investor is signing up for is this like trade. Like, I'll take the compliance risk for the economics. I think it's like there's much less data privacy sensitivity in B2B if we can get a good product going in that space. That's like something along the lines of like on your website intent down to the individual, plus some, a third party intent product that's easier to buy than the intent products out there right now. That's like everybody I've spoken to, they've been like, that's very interesting. Tell me when I can be a beta tester, So yeah, I don't know. I'm 42. I'm getting a lot of energy from it. Like, if it would be great to create a big company, it would be great to, find a home for this that is another company. It's just hard to say when it's like, I thought it was going like this, then it looked like it's going like this. And then, it's like the trajectory has been very strange the last 6 months because of, what we've done in macro and like the whole thing. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll probably have a lot better answer for that in like a year.
No, I mean, it's a fine answer for now. It's good, but I will probably hit you up again in a year and ask you for it.
See where we're at.
Yeah. So,
hopefully we haven't gone backwards. That would be a big problem.
I'm sure you won't. So let's switch gears here for a second. one of the things when we first got introduced that that I thought was really cool was the way that you kind of go against the grain in a lot of ways in terms of knowing when to go for it and when not to. It's not always a data-driven decision. Sometimes it's just a tough decision, go with your gut type thing, and that resonates with me because that's one of my core tenets. And so the question I guess is, do you have any certain times that you can remember where you had to make a really tough decision about whether to go for something or not, and maybe the gut didn't match up with what the data initially said? And how did you navigate that type of situation?
I mean, we kind of just did something like that in October. We hired 50 people, and before that, I was making a lot of money. And a lot of people before me have gone from making a lot of money to trying to scale a company and being in a worse situation at the end of it than they were at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, but I found this guy who had a lot of experience creating very large and successful data companies named Santosh. And I kind of put all my faith in him. And at the time, our churn sucked. We had to figure out how to sell an annual deal. We had to hire 50 people. It's all of the stuff that I literally thought it was impossible for us to sell an annual deal with our current product. We tried before. So yeah, I mean, I think in a strange way, it's just the call to adventure is,
yeah,
it's just gives you meaning in life and is rewarding. And, now we'll see what happens, but yeah, I navigated it in the classic hero's journey with the help of this, wizard who I sort of met along the way.
Yeah. And any times when you've gone with that, but maybe it didn't pay off the way you had hoped it would, or maybe the opposite, you decided to hold back on not doing this decision and it turned out to be the right one?
I mean, I can think of, so what comes to mind was before I found this guy who was the wizard, I was in this kind of consulting relationship with another very senior person who was going to leave his job and come full time or whatever. And I was I sent him an offer letter. I was sort of apprehensive, but kind of all in at the same time, this guy's going to make it work. What's the worst that can happen? And then finally I had to call it off because, we had a major communication problem to put it lightly. And it just wasn't working, but I had a contract renegotiation with him. He works at, someone we do business with. And it was just so painful that I was oh my goodness, I'm so glad that didn't happen. Because if it would have gotten, it was almost at the goal line. And then if it gets across the goal line, someone that senior, you give them at least some amount of time, right?
Right.
I don't even, a long amount, right? I don't know. You got to give 6 months for it to get, I don't know, a year for it to get really bad or whatever. I don't even know. But yeah, that's the one that really comes to mind. I don't know. My brain doesn't really, it's hard for me to think about things that I haven't done for some reason.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to recall that. I don't know. Maybe I just try everything. I have no idea.
Well, you just throw it in the back and move forward, right? Yeah. So what advice do you have for other business owners, other entrepreneurs, about knowing when to take risks of their own and maybe when to hold back, or probably not hold back, focus on the when to take risks part of that?
My personal opinion is that you kind of always have to be doing experiments that are going to be your next S curve, your next exponential.
Yeah.
doing those with as little resources as humanly possible and as little commitment and as little attention from like the mothership that's actually working, like becoming a master at doing that, I think is like the advice that I would have. As an example, this B2B product we're talking about, like we were figuring out a way to try to build it into our system, and we're hiring an engineering team right now. And Tate's just like, dude, it's going to take 6 months for this person to even understand enough to build something on top of this. Like literally start debugging, it's going to take 6 months. And it's like, well, we can't really build a new website because we need this one piece of technology and the other one. If we could build a new website, it would be much faster than that. And then I was talking to Santos, my COO, about it. And I'm like, is there a way we could provide this service literally with like a team of VAs in Philippines? And like the customer would never know. It's just, we create the account for them. It's called retention.com, B2B intent. And like they get sent a script, they install it on their site. And then like the VA is like going through our user interface, matching those emails to LinkedIn profiles and business emails, compiling the other third-party intent data, and just sending them a file every day. He's like, yeah, we can do that. It's like, that's like it's like, it's going to take no one's attention but ours. You know, it's a super lightweight way to validate whether our thesis is correct, that like it would be disruptive to go under the current intent data market. And like, you know, people actually want this intent signal coming off their pricing page or whatever to hit into their CRM. So yeah, trying to do experiments as lean as possible, expending as little tech resources as possible until you have a strong signal back is kind of like, I guess the answer is you always need to be taking risk, in my opinion. It's just how you do it, right? Like how you do it in a way to where, you know, if it pays off 1,000x. If it doesn't, which it probably won't, like, you know, you lost some time, right? Like, but not sort of attention with what's working.
Yeah, sure. Totally get it. I got one last kind of set of questions, I guess, before we go into the Founder 5 for today. So it's around a topic that I think you had a lot of, or at least a couple of stories of from your last company, and maybe even one from this one as well, around kind of dismantling sales organizations, or, you know, when it's not scaling or it's not doing what it should be, you know, totally re-engineering the sales function. And the question is, you know, first off, can you just share a challenge that you faced while scaling a sales team and how you overcame it?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I think what you're referring to is like I think I had like a 30-person kind of boiler room type operation in my last company. I thought we had a bunch more leads coming in, like another 1 million. They didn't work once I got everybody calling them. But we had, you know, we had a business. We had 3 million of subscription revenue. The business was like break even with all the people. It's like, well, what do you do? Like, no one's picking up the phone. It's like, you just have to cut. You have to cut the thing, you know. Like I basically, it was like, if you're standing in this room, you don't have a job anymore. Like I fucked up, this, that, the other. It was terrible. Yeah. But like, it's hard, man. Like, I don't know, like we might've just done it now. Like there's this macro change that occurred over the last couple of months in the market that we sell into. We hired people in December, and like after a week of training, they were closing 80% of the deals with like a 7-day sales cycle. It's like,
wow.
But then once they're all trained up and fully productive, they're a quarter, you know what I mean? It's like the customers stopped buying.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. It's like, if it turns, my company's the right size. If it doesn't pick up for him here, the only problem that I have is like, we have way too many people. So it's like,
right.
It's fairly easy to solve in the United States. Like, so yeah, I mean, look, it's unfortunately none of us have a crystal ball, and you know, you got to do what's right by the business to survive and stay alive. Right. Like,
yeah.
It can be very confusing. There's no cheat code.
No, there isn't. There isn't. There is no cheat code. All right. Let's hop into the Founder 5 to close us off today. So first question is the top metric or KPI that you are relentlessly focused on.
I am. So this is technical, but it's the most important one for us. It's like we do a 12-month deal with a 60-day out, and the 60-day opt-out rate is what's most important for me right now. Mm-hmm. Keeping that as low as possible, rolling people into their contract revenue.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Is that, and real quick, part B to that, has that had a major influence on churn?
So like we don't call it churn because they haven't hit the contract period yet, but it's a headwind when it's higher than you want it to be.
It's like post 60-day retention, right? Like it's
yeah. It's like a paid trial conversion. So when the conversion rate is much lower than you were expecting, everything sucks. When it's much higher than you were expecting, everything's great, right? So if the conversion rate is lower off of a high base of closes 60 days prior, exactly as your pipeline freezes up, then you're getting the double whammy. You're getting it from both ends, which like is kind of what happened to us in this beautiful period. So yeah.
All right, next one. Top tip for growth stage founders like yourself.
So I'm going to say this thing, and it's kind of like it will be an answer to another question you're going to ask me also. But like, I think that being in a position of financial freedom as a growth stage company is so powerful, yet so rare. Like it either kind of comes one or two ways. You're like very cash flow positive in a founder led business, or you have taken VC and you have like so far exceeded their expectations with a profitable business that they're just like leaving you alone.
Yeah.
They don't even want any part of it. But I think it allows you to be experimental in the way necessary that you like, need to be to like create like a massive deal. I'm not there yet. I'm like trying, financial freedom is like 2 months away, but like large company is several years.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I'm assuming the question that's going to have the same answer is the piece of advice that counters traditional wisdom.
Be profitable. Yeah. I mean, in tech, right? Like, make more money than you spend is like not a thing that people value very much. I kind of get it, but like at the same time,
it's shifting back to
it's shifting back, but like, I don't know. It's like,
no, I hear you. All right. Next one is a favorite book or podcast that's helped you to grow as a founder.
So my favorite book about starting startups is 4 Steps to the Epiphany. I think it's by Steve Blank. Mm-hmm. It's so good. Every time I create a new product, I read it again.
What about
maybe not a feature, but like a total, it's just, it's like the guy who wrote the Lean Startup took this method and like converted it into it's like a textbook, and he like converted it into a more digestible way. But it's like the idea is like at the same time you're developing your product, you're developing your customers.
Right.
And if the customers don't want the product you're building, you don't change the features to meet their demand. You fucking start over.
Right. Right. What about for those a little later in their journey?
I think the hard thing about hard things is like a really good, book about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. What is going to be the title of your autobiography?
We're going to call it All In.
All In, just like the podcast.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
Nice, man. I love it. All right. Well, you've given a ton to our listeners today. So time for a little bit of self-promotion. How can those listening help you out?
Yeah, so I'm just doing a lot on LinkedIn. Adam Robinson, retention.com. I've got this docu-series I'm making called $1 Billion Challenge, which is like 10 minutes a week. And it's like basically me building in public and like, you know, the little story arcs that happen as you're like trying to, you know, do it, and stuff breaks and you do great and you do shitty and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can email me at adam@retention.com if you want. I'll hit you back.
Awesome, dude. Adam, this has been a blast. If you found value in this conversation today, please do take a moment to post about it on social. Follow Adam, hit up his new docuseries. It's going to be awesome. So thanks again for joining us on The Dirt. And Adam, take care, man.